Hi there, this is Luise Heinzel. Thanks for joining me today. This is part one of a total of 3 videos in which I want to show you how I created this envelope notebook. This project I made for the Tim Holtz Sizzix Christmas 2023 release. Yes, you've heard right, and you can probably see it at first glance. This is a Christmas project, but of course you can transfer this idea to any other theme that you like or where you have materials laying around on your desk. In this first part, I want to show you how I constructed the base for this envelope notebook, and in the following 2 videos, you can watch me decorating the single flips and flaps and every page that we have in this envelope notebook. So let's start with the basics. An envelope notebook is of course made out of envelopes, so I have a total of 2 envelopes here. I've chosen those that have this triangular flaps, and then I have several different other pockets. So I have these CD sleeves, this little coffee dyed paper bag, some packages from guitar strings, which you can see here, really cool with this black, but you can of course use whatever you want, and I want to encourage you to use what you have. I have chosen some vellum pieces as well, like these envelopes and the little paper bags that you've seen before, because I want to have a really grungy look for my project. For that, I first take some spray, and I say spray, I don't say the color, I don't say anything, because I want you to use what you have. This video is probably a little bit different than the other videos that you see on my channel. I did this on purpose. There are several different things that are different. For example, the speed. As you can see, this is the footage in original speed. Normally, we as YouTube creators would think this is totally boring for you to watch. But I left it in the original speed because of several different reasons. The main reason is that I got several different comments below my past videos where you said, when I see a relatively time-consuming project, like for example my ideology Halloween projects, then I feel like sitting with you on the same at the same desk when I can watch how you have done it and when I can see your process. And some of you have written you feel like normal again when you see that I struggle as well. That gave me some interesting thoughts, especially about how videos on YouTube are edited. And that's the reason why you see me grunging up these little bags and envelopes in real time. Because I think that is something like a thing that you can misunderstand. If you see a finished project, for example, a flip through of a junk journal, or you see a finished wall decoration or something like that, you can be relatively easily overwhelmed about the finished project, and you think, oh wow, this person who has created this had a very, very clear plan in the beginning before even starting with this. And this person has a really big knowledge about what he or she is doing there. And I want to show that also those people where you think, oh, the projects are beautiful and the projects are perfect, they struggle as well. And I read so often that you like what I do, and of course I really appreciate that, and I'm happy that you like what I do, but I struggle as well. And that's what I want to show with this. And I also want to show you that especially things that have to do with grunge take their time. They need time to develop, and of course they need time to dry. Yeah, that sounds really simple, but they need time to dry. And when I add several different layers of ink here, of course those pieces need to dry, And of course, I will not show you how these pieces are going to dry. Yeah, I have cut that out from the video, of course. But I want you to realize that people who show you like process videos or tutorials, they edit their videos and you don't see everything, and you don't see those things where the creator thinks it's boring for you to watch. And there's another thing. I have recorded this footage several weeks ago when I created this project. You know, this project I have made for the Tim Holtz live video, which you have seen on Saturday. That is actually yesterday, I think. Yes, today is Sunday, and that was yesterday. Actually, while I'm saying this, it's Friday, but that doesn't matter. That's only why I'm a little bit confused. But you have already seen it on Tim's channel because I have created it several weeks ago, and now I'm doing the voiceover over this video. Yeah, and when I see this now, I can say that I have a really what's the word? It's a good distance that I have. It's like a healthy distance that I have to my process, because now I can see things that might be interesting for you if you have never done something like this. And with this distance, I have the chance to talk about that and to, bring your mind into that direction, where you perhaps have no chance when you record a video and then an hour later you edit it, then you don't have this distance. And that is something that I learned in the meantime, and that is really relaxing for me as well, because here I can see what I have done and not only my finished project. I'm posting, for example, I'm posting my photos on Instagram, and I, for myself and for my own experience, see like only the finished posts. But seeing this and what I have done there, and that it took time, and that that it was fun, and that I enjoyed it, that is perhaps like a little bit missing if you do it directly after each other. I mean, doing it and editing the video. Perhaps that's a trick or a tip for you if you have an own YouTube channel as well. If you have the chance to wait a little bit until you edit the video, please try that. It's really, really, it's a little bit strange, but in a positive way. So let's take some backdrops. I have taken 2 backdrops at the same time to get this the same size for my envelopes, and I have cut them into the right size, of course. But how can I explain that? I want to have these papers that they are really fitting into the envelope with nearly no space. That will make sense in a few minutes, hopefully, because I want to use these backdrop papers to decorate a part of the inner part and the bottom part of the envelope. You will see in a second what I mean. So when I put this in here now, you can see it is relatively big. If you would create a card and you want to fit this card into the envelope, you would probably cut that a little bit smaller. But I have done it like this because I want to decorate the whole white paper of this envelope. I don't want to have any like white frame around that, and I want to do a little trick, and for that I'm making sure that this paper is really completely in the envelope until the very bottom of this inner part of the envelope. Then I'm taking a pencil and I'm following this line here from the envelope. So this looks relatively interesting in my eyes. That's why I have chosen this kind of envelope. If you have another envelope, then this shape might be a little bit different, but that doesn't matter. Just follow this line and then try to get this paper out from the envelope. As you can see, I've left this in the video here because I want you to see that I struggled to get this out there. I had this in my mind that it can work, and it worked, as you can see, but I needed time to get that out, and I struggled, and I perhaps also left some words in German that are not so nice, and if you would translate them to English, they would also be not so nice, but that's normal, and that is part of a creative process, yeah? So depending on how aggressive you are, you can perhaps also have some words that are not your like daily words. But as you can see, I've just cut along this line. Please follow this line that you've just made before with the pencil really exactly, because we will need the piece that we've just cut off for the other envelope. So don't cut into that piece, but just follow the line so that you have two pieces of this paper. And then I'm gluing this down here. In this case, I've used a regular, relatively strong glue stick because I want to sew later with my sewing machine, and then a glue stick is enough for me and it doesn't wrinkle the paper too much. If you don't have a sewing machine or you don't want to sew, then please use a stronger glue. And we're going to do the same procedure with the second envelope as well. This time we have a little bit more practice, but it's still hard to get that out. And we can perhaps leave some bad words. And then we just cut along this line so that we get exactly the same thing like on the other envelope, but with the different pattern of this other backdrop. I'm also taking this, and first I check if everything fits, and then I'm taking my glue stick and glue this down. And as you perhaps hopefully can see, there's nearly no white of the envelope left now. That was the reason why I cut this paper so big, so that I get nearly no frame around there. I mean, there will be like a 1/2 millimeter perhaps, but we can ink that up later and we won't see that anymore. That's just because of the thickness of the paper of the envelope, of course. I'm taking this paper distresser. I would say this is optional, but I will tell you why I did this. So in the first step, I've distressed it with this paper distresser. You could also use some scissors. And in the second step, I've used some Distress Oxide ink walnut stain to ink the edges of both of these, like, how do you call that, where you put this in? Yeah, you see where it is. I have done that to roughen the edge a little bit and to make it darker than the rest of the paper is, because then you can see that there's a pocket. In this stage, you can clearly see it because the rest of the envelope is still white. But when we glue the paper later, then it gets like a little bit matchy, and I like it when you can see where a pocket is. So then I have taken a book page. This was by coincidence the right size, so I could just glue it into this envelope. I have also just taken a glue stick and glue that down. And on top of that, I'm gluing the rest of the other pattern of the other paper. So you can see now they are like a little puzzle. And on the other envelope, I'm doing it exactly the same with the other piece that I have left over, so that both of these sides of the notebook match really well. And then I have taken some linen tape. This is also by Tim Holtz. It has this beautiful Christmas design. I thought a little bit of red and green could be not so bad, even if I want to have this really brownish and really like traditionally grungy, but I wanted to have something that has a little bit like a pop of color. But the main reason for this tape is the sturdiness of this fold in between of this triangle of the envelope and the rest. I want to have a really sturdy end result, and if you imagine that you open and close this envelope relatively often, by the way, this is just decoration. I had this piece left over. I've just glued it there to not waste it. If you open and close the envelopes later very often, then it can happen that the paper there where the fold is from the envelope is not strong enough. And I wanted to strengthen that with this linen tape. And for that, this linen tape is just perfect. I really like that for making these kind of like problem solutions, or also for example, journal hinges or something like that. That is like really the perfect solution. So I'm taking then another backdrop and I've just glued that down to the flap so that I now can just cut around it to get the perfect size for this, and so that I also don't have any white of the envelope showing through. And I've done that for both of the envelopes, of course, so that both inner parts of this flap are decorated. Make sure that you glue this paper not too close to the fold of this flap to make sure that the flap can open and close really easily. And then I've just done that here for the second envelope as well, as you can see, and I've just cut that off with my scissors. I'm a little bit out of frame. I'm really sorry, but I I think you can clearly see what I have done here. Make sure that also the material of the envelope is glued down to the backdrop paper or whatever paper you use for decorating, that it is glued down really well. You don't want to have any wrinkles on the back side of the envelopes. You will see in a few minutes why. And to get some more grunge, I've also inked the edges of the envelope and the paper. And here you can also see this tiny, tiny little white frame disappears with the inking. So that is not a problem, I would say. And I also inked up all of the little bags and sleeves that I had there. And with the vellum, you could see just how I have done that. I've just rubbed the material over my media surface mat to get a little bit of ink to this irregular surface of the envelopes and these little paper bags. With vellum, it's really easy to get grunge, isn't it? So then we have both of these envelopes, and these go like so together now. So the white is kissing each other, if you will, so that we have one flap on the one side and the other flap on the other side. And now we can take all of our pieces that we've chosen for making those additional flaps and put them there where we want. So, for example, this this CD sleeve already has this flap, so I can just wrap that around the envelope and have this flap on the back where I can later glue that. As you can see, this is like, I'm feeling relatively slowly when I rewatched this, but this was the original speed I have done this whole thing. And why is this so slow? Yeah, that's very easy. If you have glued this down, it's there. And if you later on want to decorate it and you don't like it anymore, you won't deconstruct the whole thing and tear off those flaps and start from new. Yeah, so you want to just think about how you want to do this. And another reason is, or several other reasons, I wanted to have this some kind of regular. You can see I have 2 CD sleeves, 2 of those guitar string packages, and so on. So 2 of these little vellum envelopes. And I've tried to get a regular look to both of the sides of this journal, but not too regular. Using the same things, but in different positions, makes it like regular as well. And several like materials and patterns will repeat during this project. Another reason why I have taken my time and why I want to encourage you to take your time is that you have to make sure that you can still open and close the flaps of the envelope really well, of this main envelope, while you have these other things below. Yeah, so make sure that everything is in the right position. And when I say right position, I mean that you can open and close that really, really well. And you also have to have in mind that the single, let's call them pages, get thicker with the decoration that we want to put onto them later. So when I had that in my hands, I was like squishing it a little bit to try to feel how it would be if everything would be twice as I don't know how I can say that in English. I mean, yeah, everything would be like twice or even 3 times thicker later when I glue something to those materials. Do you know what I mean? It's the same with journal pages. Yeah, you have to have in mind that it gets thicker and you don't want to have problems with opening and closing this triangle of the envelopes. So try to arrange these flaps like regular, not everything on the right side and nothing on the left side, and try to put them more to the bottom than to the top. The closer you come into this fold, the harder it gets to close and open the flap later. I hope that makes sense. So let's start gluing those to the envelopes, and that is relatively easy, especially if you have chosen like CD sleeves or other packages that have those flaps already, because now you can just take the flaps and glue them to the back of the envelope, and the fold is already there and you can just use it as a flap. But if you don't have that, or you want to take just pages and not pockets or something, then you could just take a bone folder and like a scoring board or another tool and just make a fold so that you get a flap to the paper that you want to use. I've just taken some bookbinders glue to glue that down, so a really strong glue, and a glue where I can make sure that the paper stays flat, and a glue where I have wiggle room, or wiggle time, I should say. As you can see, I'm just laying it down, and then I'm trying out what happens when I close this CD sleeve, because especially there on the top where the fold of the envelope is, it's a little problem if the if the CD sleeve would be too high. Yeah, because this CD sleeve is actually a little bit bigger than the envelope is high. And that is a problem because it overlaps on the bottom a little bit. That is just an aesthetic problem, I would say. But you have to make sure that this is not too high. Otherwise, you couldn't close the envelope without having problems. And you want to check that. Yeah, I have flipped it back and forth with every single piece that I have glued down there. Especially for the smaller pieces, like for example this guitar string package, I have decided that I want to have that like harmonious, but as far to the bottom as possible, because there on the top where the triangle of the main envelope is, you have not so much space. And if you think that you have the decoration on those pages later, it will get thicker and thicker and thicker there. And you want to have, or that is my opinion, yeah, I wanted to have something that is not thick at the top and thin on the bottom. So I tried to put all of those smaller things more to the bottom. And I also think when you open that, it looks more harmonious when the smaller flaps are on the bottom, because then you can directly see this bigger pocket in the back that we got with the envelope. And I think that just looks a little bit nicer, but please do that like you want it. And if you think, oh, I don't need pockets, I want to have space for journaling, for example, then please check out the description box of this video. I have linked 2 other videos for you there. That is basically the same project, but there are 2 parts of that video available. In those videos, I show you another version of this envelope notebook idea. I have made the other one as a design team project for Barbara at 49 Dragonflies. Hi, Barbara, if you perhaps are watching. And that is also not Christmas themed. I've used some of her mushrooms and other papers from her shop. So if you want to check that out, you can find the links below this video. And there I also show you how to include more like journaling pages into such an envelope notebook, but it's a really similar construction. So now I'm taking some double-sided tape on 3 sides of the envelope, left, right, and bottom, so that the top has no tape, so that we get a pocket there in between of both of the envelopes as well. That might be a little bit confusing because I will not fill the pocket with something in this video and also not in the other videos that are coming, because I wanted to have this as simple as possible. You perhaps might know that Tim has shown this envelope notebook yesterday in his live video. And when he shows that in a live video, it has to be as simple as possible. And I think this is already relatively complex for someone who normally as not journals in his hand on a daily basis. Do you know what I mean? So if you have to explore such a thing within a few minutes, then it can be relatively confusing and too long and too much. So I've left this top pocket empty, but you could fill it with something, of course. So let's now decorate the outer flaps of this whole thing. And as you can see, I've just made myself this little guy here. So it has a little like overlapping piece next to this triangular shape. And that's because I want to fiddle that into this pocket, yeah? Where you can see where I put this in now, there's the pocket, and I want to have that overlap inside of the pocket for about like 2 centimeters or so. That has several reasons, and perhaps you think, why the heck is she doing that now? Why hasn't she done that before gluing the envelopes together? I got you. I totally got you. But there are 2 reasons. The first reason is it seemed to me that it is easier, more sturdy, and more exact when I do it like this. So as you can see, I first put the glue to this little 2 centimeter overlapping thingy where I made the fold. That will go into this pocket in a second, and then I will glue the rest. And the thing is, if you glue things to an envelope when it lays flat, let that dry, then close the envelope, then the paper stays there where it was. But if you would fold that around the edge and glue it in the folded condition, I think that makes no sense what I'm saying here. I mean, for me it makes sense, but perhaps it makes no sense to you. But I have the feeling that it gets more exact and it gets more sturdy, and the flap is like more flexible this way. But in the end, I thought perhaps that is just like an illusion that I have. I don't know. You can see this red paper there. That is the back side of the backdrop, which I'm gluing there right now. I will cut that off in a second. And that also gave me this illusion that something is a little bit different, depending on when you glue this. I don't know. But this is also something that I left in here in this video. And I'm talking about that to show you that I also struggle with the simplest things. Perhaps you might think, why? I mean, why is this so difficult? Why not just glue this down? Yeah, because this is a project that is like a little bit meditative thing. I want to make it good so that Tim likes it and you as well, of course. And it is also something special to make a Tim Holtz make, of course, but it's the same thing with any other project as well. But the struggle sometimes is real with the simplest things. And that's what I wanted to show with leaving these parts in the video and talking about them. And I'm hoping that you see that and that you can feel that when you the next time perhaps struggle with things where other people say, oh, that's the easiest thing in this world, and that is just simple. Just trust the process. I mean, that is something that we hear very often, and perhaps we don't listen too extremely to that because it's said so often, but that is so true. That is just so true. So if you want to craft along with me, then you have now the chance to prepare this base. Tomorrow you will see me decorating one half of this envelope notebook, and the day after tomorrow we are decorating the second part, so that you get an imagination of your schedule for the next days. So I hope you like this. If you have any questions, then please leave a comment, and I hope we will see tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. It's like a week of stress, I know. See you.